Yep. Good morning, everyone. This is episode 148. Yep. And we're live. We have another large number of guests, or hosts, whatever you want to call us. Chill is not here, so I'll be taking the reins, as it were. He'll be back next week. He's just on holiday. So we're almost ready to go. Anything else we need to discuss before we roll?
No, I can't think of anything.
I don't think so. I think Stacey has a lot more info on the bombers than Dan and I put together by the looks of it.
All right.
Yeah, is he the one that put all this stuff in the notes? I was like, wow, somebody's been busy.
So based on that, Stacey, do you want to lead that discussion and have the other two contribute? Are you two happy with that? Or
Sounds good. Me.
All right. Let's do it like that. Make sure my mouth isn't full of teeth. All right.
Yeah, Stassi's my hero.
Oh, cool.
I'm glad I'm someone's hero.
All right. Everyone's got a good seal. Oh, Junidai, you did have some audio bleed last week. Through.
Yeah, I reduced it a little bit more even this week.
Okay.
Did you tweet?
I just checked the volumes and it looks like it should be good.
Okay. Yes, I have tweeted.
Okay, I'll retweet it.
All right.
Do you ever put out a Facebook message at the same time?
I do not.
Dawned on me this week that might be another way for people to notice.
I suppose, but Facebook's a bit selective in how it puts stuff out.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. All right. Let's get the show on the road. Going in 5. Hi, and welcome to the OotiniCast, the podcast that only at the end recognizes the power of the dark side. This is episode 148, being recorded on Wednesday, June 25th, 2014. I'm your host, Tio, taking the reins while Chill is on holiday. Our hosts today include Redna and 3 Galactic Starfighter specialists, Junidai Dan, who you remembered from last week, and Anastasia, a new guest. So let's get to know Anastasia, or just call him Stacey. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's start with, when did you start playing SWTOR?
I started playing SWTOR back in beta about 6 months or so before the game launched.
Okay.
I've been playing almost constantly ever since.
Did you take any breaks away from the game?
Only one real break. I took a break in June of 2013 to complete my MBA. Doubled up on my classes, got through it. Stopped doing ops with Suckafish, which was the premier raiding guild on the Bastion, and came back for Galactic Starfighter Early Access. So
tell us about your pre-Galactic Starfighter career. You were obviously a serious raider.
I am a serious, I guess what you would characterize as a hardcore gamer. So on top of that, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I saw SWTOR coming out, jumped on that wagon, no questions asked. When the game launched in early access on Warriors of the Shadow, I was the first level 50 with a group of friends on a Sith assassin by the name of Rain. So, I mean, obviously, I was one of the first people on the server to get a name like that. Later on, there was a merger over to the Bastion. I had done a lot of PvP and operations on Warriors of the Shadow, and when we merged over to the Bastion, I had to change pretty much all of my extremely coveted names, which I was a little upset about, but ended up leveling my Sith Sorcerer, which is Anastasia over there, and finding that I really liked Sorcerer gameplay. I liked healing, I liked DPSing, everything that a Sorcerer can do was very entertaining to me, a lot more so than I would say my Sith Assassin. And so from there, I ended up doing a lot of operations, PvPing with her, and joined Suckafish as a healer, which, when the first expansion came out, I ended up getting server first 55 as well, because that's just the type of person I am. As you can tell, I'm an extremely competitive person. From there, just did ops nonstop. Eventually, I couldn't handle doing ops frequently with the amount of workload for my MBA program, so I took a break. Saw the Galactic Starfighter announcement before early access and immediately jumped on that because that's all I've been waiting for a really long time. I'm one of those original TIE Fighter players. I love playing every type of sim, especially Star Wars space sims. So that was like a dream come true for me. I played in their beta as well, and ever since early access I've played.
Okay. Do you do anything besides Galactic Starfighter now? Are you still doing any ops at all?
I did end up doing ops through a friend that I met through Galactic Starfighter, which is actually pretty interesting, and I don't do it on Imperial side, I do it on Republic side on the Bastion, with insert guild name here, and that's a shout out to Jennifer, who is one of the starfighters I play with practically every day for hours at a time. Like I said, I'm an extremely hardcore player, so I have 14 level 55s, many of which are geared PvP, PvE. The only two I don't have are Commandos and Gunslinger. I prefer doing everything. I love doing everything, and when the cartel market first launched, my goal was to own literally everything there. Again, hardcore player, so as far as achievements go, 100% Galactic Starfighter. I have every ship mastered, and many of the ships are what we started calling completed, which are mastering every single component on it.
Okay.
So that's on both the Empire and the Republic side for mastering all the ships.
Yeah, in order to get 100% Galactic Starfighter achievements, you have to do both sides.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Just out of
Fortunately, it's
interest,
only for the
forward
ship
to-
types that are not from the cartel market.
Just out of interest, are you looking forward to Galactic Strongholds? Is that part of the game that is going to interest you?
So I'm not really what you would call a role player, although I do think housing and designing and that sort of stuff is really interesting, so I am excited for it, but not in the same way I was excited for Galactic Starfighter. There are a lot of things I would like to do that I don't think I'm going to be able to do with it, and, like, for example, give it a very Galactic Starfighter-esque theme, but I am excited for it nonetheless.
All right.
Oh,
Great.
geez, but if you've done this much endgame content and as hardcore as you are, it sounds like you're going to have all kinds of unlocked trophies and all sorts of, everything to be able to put into it. It should be a pretty epic house anyway.
All right. Oh, moving on then. Junidai, what have you been up to in the past week?
Okay, so I had to get my OCD out of the way and complete the Gambin achievements. So finally got the 3 Vectrons, 1 Exploding Machine, and 1 Rancor. 800k for the whole lot, so it's not too bad at all. So
That's pretty good.
I know some people have done it a lot cheaper, and some people are on like 3 million plus and still no Rancor for them, so it's random generator is very random.
Yes.
With my gunslinger, I actually tried switching specs up. I tried switching over to the dirty fighting, which is the right-hand tree. I think it's lethality on the Empire side, but it's actually a really fun spec to play. And I did notice before even switching any of my gear around that it was a DPS increase as well. I don't know if it's just because there's a simpler rotation, less buttons and procs to watch out for. But I also sucked it up and bought the 34 barrels, and that was expensive, like 2 million a pop. I mean, they've come down in price because I think they used to be 3 million, but it still hurt.
Yeah.
And so with that as well, there's an extra couple of hundred DPS that I gained just from that alone, which was nice.
Excellent.
And then other stuff, I joined a Karaga's Palace run on Saturday with Mariah, one of our fellow guildies, set up. That was a real good fun run. It's good to see the old content. Had a bit of problems with the puzzle boss. I love the puzzle bosses, but I don't get them whatsoever, and a lot of people hadn't seen it before, so it took a couple of dry runs to run through and get it. But everything else, real smooth in there, so it's real good to chill back and not have to stress too much doing those runs. And then the last thing I've been doing, of course, is Galactic Starfighter. Not much else. I'm still working on the latest bomber and gunship to get those mastered, but all the matches I've been having have been real close this week. A couple of death matches which were 49 to 50 and sort of right up to the wire, and the other matches defending the nodes 950 to 1,000, so a lot of them don't seem to be as many of the one-sided matches as there used to be a couple of weeks ago.
That's good. Are they pub versus imp, or were you still getting a lot of pub versus pub?
There was a couple of pub versus pub, but mostly it was versus the imps.
Okay.
But every time we went up against them, there's solid teams on both sides, so it's good when it's that tight.
Absolutely.
And that's
All
my
right.
week.
Thank you, sir. Dan, how about you?
Okay, I finished leveling my one Imperial character up to 55. I leveled him from 25 to 55 purely through Galactic Starfighter.
Wow.
So that was fun. Yep.
Mhm.
I got a couple, 2 or 3 ships mastered over there. None of them completed yet on him. Finished mastering the new bomber on
Congrats.
Megadan. So I got that done. I'm enjoying that. It's a little different, but I've been having fun with it. I've had my best run. I had like an 11 kill, 6 assist run, something like that. I've been starting to get caught up on the gambling. I figured out how to kind of like do it two-fisted. If you stand on the end, you can click on 2 machines almost like at the same time and go back and forth real quick.
Let me just say that this is something Ari pointed out to me. If you stand between, like in between the banks, you can actually do 4 just by
You get
strafing.
I was wondering.
Yep.
You could,
Well, you can't. You have to move a little bit, but it's
Okay.
like slight strafe left and right, and you can keep 4 going.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll try that out. I haven't
Just
put a
means
whole
you burn
lot.
through your money that much faster.
Yeah, true. I burned through the credits pretty quick just going at it two-fisted. I haven't dumped a whole lot into it yet. I haven't gotten anything really though either. Some certificates, but I've only dumped like 200,000 into it so far, something like that. Not a lot.
Okay.
Let me see. Oh, that email that you sent to us with the guy with the website.
Trade Sheen, yeah.
Yeah. What was his name?
Trade Sheen.
Oh, okay.
Jeez, I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Anyway, I signed up.
Yeah.
He was wanting to come around and like play with people on the weekend or something. So I replied to his Facebook post, and hopefully I'll touch base with him over the weekend and run
Excellent.
some rounds of GSF. I play pretty good and can speak on it, but I'm all about playing with some people that even know better than me, even when like in matches where it's just becomes hopeless and we're helplessly outgunned. I just hang back. I never quit. I just hang back and then start trying to analyze what the imps are doing, look at their makeup. They've been running a lot of just gunships and scouts and just annihilating people with organized groups like that. That's what I've run into, and then a couple of like completely lopsided games. I had one that I lost 999 to 1,000.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I've had 2 wins at 998 to 1,000, and then the 1 loss, and I got the screen caps.
Cool.
So that's been my week.
All right, Red, over to you.
Yeah, so we've got a huge group in the chat room today. It looks like we've got Ben B55, Caligari, Darth Pops, a guest, Heather, Pretty Little Sith, Marvinheim, Neptune, Palais, Swotor Miner, Trey Sheen, Zathos, Billiam, Beware 2, Caligari, Dracolich, Ghost Mirror, Inixis, Josfan, and Rakiri. So it's a big group.
Yeah, that's a good crowd. They all heard Stasi was going to be here.
But yeah, I just wanted to start out my week. My favorite moment, I was, with Jubs, aka at Ordo Scarata. He and I went into a match at lunch, and it was one of those matches that Stasi wasn't against us. In fact, the other team was 80% or more in the original stock 2 ships, like not even subs when it launched, so they didn't get the free quarrel. So we just decided, hey, it's a deathmatch. Let's have some fun with this. And we went charging out there in I had the brand new bomber, the Strong Hammer, and he went out in one of the other bombers. And we were just like, hey, let's go take bombers into deathmatch because we don't do well on bombers in deathmatch. I ended up finishing that match 12 kills, 7 assists, top of the leaderboard. And he finished it out with 7 kills. I think it was 16 or 18 assists. And he was the only person in the match that beat me on overall damage by like 3k. We both broke 50k damage, and it's just like that shouldn't happen on a bomber in a deathmatch. Felt so good. I mean, just lovely.
Well, if you can find a good defensive position to post up at, and they just keep coming at you, you can be pretty devastating with a good minefield and a little something to reach out and touch them.
Well, and that's what had happened was we had tried to start out that way because especially it was the asteroid field, so we like to stretch out towards the Imperial side where they've got that tiny little box cage thing that actually has all sorts of bob and weave areas underneath it with tight little quarters and everything. So we set ourselves up and we're all posted up there, and then realized we had to keep stretching out further and further just to tap people for assists. And finally we were just like, forget it, let's just go out and start shooting people. And with that bomber that I've got, the strong hammer, I mean, granted, we made this decision because they were all undergeared and obviously new. But when I have somebody coming at me head to head, and I set off a concussion missile, and I'm shooting them with blasters, and then I poop out a little concussion mine behind me, and then just fly away, and the guy just keeps flying in a straight line and kills himself on my mine, it's hard to feel bad about that.
No. If I'm in a mismatched game, I don't get really crappy and try and camp their spawn spots or anything like that.
Yeah, no, well, and we didn't actually end up doing that. We just kept flying around. It was a lot of fun. Bombers, and at the end of the day, most of the damage you're doing is just straight out of your blasters, unless you're rocking a missile, which I was, but I ran out of missiles pretty early and didn't die. So beyond that, I've been learning to love the Clarion and the Condor. Two ships I hadn't really been playing much until this week. And in particular, for the second half of this week, I was nearly exclusively flying ships I had no mastery on. It would be the Clarion, the Condor, the Sledgehammer, and... oh, and the Spearpoint, the scout ship, that support scout ship. And loving it. I've had so much opportunity to just keep playing, and fortunately, during the second half of the week, I had friends on the server that were playing on my side of the faction that I was able to play my fun ships without worrying about having my rear end handed to me. So experimenting with those was great, and actually I did have a really nice match where I had and I did have a few extra new people that I was playing with, and they were doing so well flying as wingman with jubs that I was able to take those support ships, they're flying support ships rather than bomber support ships, and utilize them very well, where I was training myself to be a much better wingman, where I'm staying in range of people so that when I pop my abilities, those ranges affect. And when you're talking to each other and shouting out targets consecutively, you end up all flying with one another because you're all switching targets and your flight path just starts to sync up. And using that support ship when you're doing that is just amazing. I mean, it was lots and lots of fun. But I did want to let everybody know that for GSF, you definitely want to get in there now before it's over. We suspect it's about a week left. Next week, they should probably be starting the new one. Mm-hmm. And for myself, I've already set a personal goal. I realize I've been playing a lot of GSF, which, anybody that's been listening knows that, but I realize I haven't been playing on the IM side. And this is an excellent opportunity for me to start gearing out those ships rapidly so that I can play the IM side more because, yeah, I want to be like Stassi at some point and have all of those achievements. I'd love to be able to get in there with some good teching involved before I spend a lot of time over there. So, yeah, definitely play now and play both sides, because you'll be able to take out some ships rapidly, and then that way, no matter who your friends are, whoever's online, whatever faction side you want to be on, you're going to have ships that you can do that with. I did have a blast. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and that's really good XP if you've got some lobby tunes on the other side that you don't really play much, just a couple of matches of GSF every now and then, just boost them up an extra couple of levels. It's not significant, but it's enough to make a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, and with the credit returns being so good, it's just ridiculous.
28,600 a win.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what it is for a loss? I'm asking the guy that doesn't lose.
I actually do lose from time to time.
It's
It's somewhere around 12 to 13K.
12,000, 13,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's like half. Okay.
It's one normal daily, basically.
But I did get to play with some new people. Some people have been reaching out to me on Twitter, and I even got a chance to play on a different server. Just started a level 1 character, set my keybinds up, and hit go. My first match, and this was on the Shadowlands. It was just so satisfying to come out of that war zone and have 10 achievements pop up on my screen. Oh, that's right, there are low-level achievements. I haven't seen these forever. It was, man, when you see 10 achievements just after one round, it just feels so good. But otherwise, yeah, I've actually had a few other people. They've logged onto the Bastion, made some characters on there, so I've been grouping up with them, and it's been a lot of fun helping people out. And you know, when people ask questions, or even they've had, well, I guess I should just give the shout out to Ash at AHSH on Twitter. He has joined me. I played with him on the Shadowlands, and then he joined me on the Bastion, and he's quite good too. New to the game, but not new to GSF. Clearly, he's doing real well. And I guess I should just go ahead and say, since we do have Stassi here, pub or imp side, either one of us, if you want to join any of the guilds that are dedicated 100% to GSF, if you want to roll a tune, you don't need to be doing ops and whatever else that you've already got your guilds with, but you want to join us in the GSF, we've got guilds on both the imp and pub side. And if you /c join GSF, we're in those chat channels and we have invite abilities. It's a good group of people. I really like the community on the Bastion, and even if you have no clue what you're doing, there's a lot of really good people that they're really happy to share their information. Not just, you know, they're not trolls. Like, if you ask, they're gonna tell, and it's a great group of people.
Good shout out to Draculich right there. He loves helping people, and he's actually willing to Twitch stream with or against you to teach you. So hop on the Bastion if you need some help.
Yeah. And what's cool is, you know, Stassi plays both pub and imp side. I've been playing mostly pub, but I'm going to be playing imp side. Draculich plays both pub and imp side. There's a bunch of people that play both sides, and then some that play exclusively one or the other. So you'll find people to play. You know, you can choose whichever side you want, and we've got enough people playing both sides that it's a good group. Otherwise, yeah, I wanted to finish out by saying next week can't get here soon enough. But it's going to be way too soon because I've been having so much fun with GSF. But next week is when we're going to be getting the double Warzone comms, which is going to be sucking me into ground PvP. I'm so into GSF, I'm not sure I can draw myself away from it. But other than that, how about your week, Tio?
I'll start with raiding. So just on day one, our 8-man, we took down hard mode Bestia in Dread Palace again, but didn't really have much time to do anything else. It went a little rougher than it did the previous week, and then on day 2, our now regular 16-man went into hard mode Scum and Villainy, and let's just say our performance was suboptimal. We were having trouble with Thrasher, the third encounter, which we've done before, but it seemed that the encounter scripting was somehow getting screwed up. Just things that were happening that really shouldn't have happened. We were speculating that maybe it was this new ability to spawn inside the instance so that each time you wipe, maybe something wasn't quite resetting enough, but whatever. Anyway,
Is Thrasher the Rhino boss?
Whatever it is, yeah.
Big red guy with horns?
The big beastie thing.
Yeah, okay.
Thrasher. And then we finished off with hard mode Tomorrow's Courtyard 16-man. So, yep, that's good fun. We're continuing that this week. Otherwise, for myself, I've been playing a lot, just doing dailies to fund my gambling habit. Opened up Oricon on my Sage and my Guardian. And oddly enough, I've been making a lot of money, but not actually spending it on gambling because I'm finding I can only spend so much time, and it's less each time in the casino before I get bored, no matter what else I'm listening to or whatever.
Yeah, it's so like it starts to put you to sleep.
Yeah, I have yet to win the Rancor. I've got about 33 golden certificates. I got the car. I mean, I've got everything else, just not the Rancor.
Any idea how much you've spent at this point?
It's probably around 800,000-ish. So
okay.
Yeah, the RNG has not been kind to me. Otherwise, done hard mode flashpoints, tanking my Guardian, my Sage, which I had switched from healing to TK, the middle tree, telekinetics. I switched based on Ari's recommendation to balance the right-hand tree, which is, I was vaguely familiar with it because that's my PvP Sork on the imp side. I'd always played him as Madness, but I hadn't picked him up for a while. But yeah, balance, especially with the changes now, it's so easy. Just so easy. And I was parsing much higher numbers, barely trying, than I was getting with TK. So it's just a little overpowered at the moment. So, and I took him into the Templars, the Utini Templars raid last night. In fact, ran quite late. We just used Group-Finder to do the story mode Dread Palace, which was currently up in the rotation, and so we just completed that. That was all fairly straightforward. And we did finally confirm that you are indeed locked out of the operation once you've completed it via the Group-Finder. So if you go into your codex thing and look under lockouts, it is actually locked out. And I found that if you open the Group-Finder panel, you just don't get the operation. You don't get the option to queue for an operation. It's just not there, presumably until the 3 days have elapsed and the next one is available. So that's how that works.
Interesting.
Yeah.
By the way, Chill did pop in the chat room. Hi, Chill.
And see you, Chill. All right, that will bring us to the tip of the week. We have 8 entries. Let's start with one from Fatal Spark of the Jedi Covenant server. He says, ever wanted to gear up a new 55 quickly for PvP? But those unranked war zones just don't seem to be popping quite quickly enough. Simply visit the Outlaw's Den PvP area on Tatooine between queues and mount up. Reward chests randomly spawn throughout the area, each containing 20 unranked Warzone comms and an average of 2,000 credits. You can maintain a steady income in this way and supplement it substantially if you have the Seeker Droid scanner and find rare speeder parts buried in the same area that sell on the GTN for hundreds of thousands of credits. Additionally, since you are probably already wearing PvP gear, if you do encounter other players in the Outlaw's Den, you should be able to defend yourself easily enough if you're attacked on your looting circuit. This tip is even better if you have unlocked the Legacy Unlock Priority Transport Outlaws Den. Garrett.
Kupalach of the Red Eclipse server submitted this tip. Just found out by accident that you can have 2 pets active at the same time. One has to be in the air and the other on the ground, which is a lot of fun.
It is. True. I'm sure we've had that one before, but it's good to remind people that that is possible. You can have the 2 out. All right, our third tip is from Nepthan of the Old Republic Dad's Guild on the Shadowlands. Something I always remind people of before every double XP event, and we do have one coming up next week. With double XP week coming up, make sure you finish a bunch of quests prior to the first day, but don't turn them in. Wait until double XP starts the next day, and then turn them in for the free XP. This is much easier if you're near level 50 and can pick up dailies, but it can be done at any level if you wish.
For our fourth tip, we've got Tobzors. On a regular basis, I return to lower level planets and do all the heroic missions in order to get a ton of planetary commendations. They're very easy to get, and I can use the commendations to buy gear mods for myself and my companions. Another advantage to revisiting planets is that I can gather lower level materials, which I in turn can use to craft items for my companions or alts. Often I will also pick up some prototype or even legendary items, which will be extremely useful for any lower level alts. It's a nice break from regular leveling and doesn't take a long time to do.
Alright, the fifth tip is from our old friend the Pummeler. This tip is for all you dive and divi who like to change your looks often. The first items that I buy, unlock in my collection, are the covert braces and belt. I then augment them with the highest kit. These are the 2 things that I will never have to upgrade again or spend credits on taking the mods out of. I can understand not wanting to do the belt for certain looks, but the braces? When was the last time you looked at a set of braces and said to yourself, wow, those braces look awesome, I have to have them? Yeah, I completely agree with him on that. I've also got the covert belt and braces on pretty much every character at this point.
Yeah, well, 99% of the outfits, you don't even have the option to see your bracers, so that doesn't matter at all. And really, there are so few belts that are even noticeable enough to matter that better to go without. Our sixth tip is from Marvinheim, GM of the Alpha Empire Guild on the Bastion. If you want to send a huge amounts of credits or very expensive items to one of your alts, I recommend to add a legacy item in your mail. By doing that, it will prevent the system from sending the mail to someone else if you'd mistyped the name. The system will show a red text message saying that you cannot send the mail to a character that is not a part of your legacy. Which is true. Actually, I have a few friends that they never mail anything to any of their alts without a legacy item in it for that very reason.
Good tip. All right, our next tip is from Eamon Ray of the 13th Legion Guild on the Ebon Hawk. Pro tip. If you need to add a new credit card in place of an old one to pay for your sub, make sure you change the payment method over to the new card first, before deleting the old card. If you don't do this, then the system will lock you out of being able to assign the new card as your payment method. To be fair, I think they warn you about this when you go to delete the old card, but it didn't register with me until after I'd done it. Ultimately, a 30-minute phone call to customer service fixed the problem. And that's not waiting for 30 minutes in a queue for the next rep to be available, but actual 30 minutes of call time and several folks to figure out what to do to fix the issue. I believe they ended up removing the old card manually, and I was able to purchase a new sub with a new card, which will then get charged once my current time is up as per usual. So, yeah, probably the best thing to take out of that is when those warnings pop up, actually read them, because sometimes they're kind of important.
Yeah, a very good functional tip. And our last tip is from Greg of the Utini Templars. When doing the Ungrateful Dead achievement on Oricon, defeat 90 crazed opponents, there is a ship just outside the Strike Team Oricon camp at coordinates -440, 21 that has 4 crazed Republic troopers on it. These mobs are normal difficulty, not elite like most of the other crazed opponents around Oricon. Farming them is a much quicker, easier way to get the achievement. Which not only is excellent because it's about achievements, I totally forgot that. Yeah, you can get those 4, and they're really, really handy. There's so few of them actually on the planet that having 4 of them all together and their normal difficulty, it really, really helps.
All right, thank you all for submitting your tips, and our winner this week by random selection is the Pummeler. I actually rolled an 8-sided dice, believe it or not, because random.org was down.
I watched. It's true.
Yes. And so you will be receiving one of the latest packs, the Nightlife one, the Starcluster Nightlife, and either an M8R3 droid or a Torn Fawn. That's your choice. Now, for next week, we actually have a trivia question from Chill, and because it's kind of a special occasion, the 2 correct entries that we'll randomly select will actually get the prizes droid or Torn Fawn and a Cartel pack each. And if you'll just hang on, I'll be able to play the actual thing. Sorry, just a slight technical difficulty. If I can't work this out quickly, I'll just add it in post, and you'll have to listen to the downloaded version to be able to... maybe I will do that. Oh no, here we go.
Hi everyone, Chill here with the Star Wars trivia question. This question has to do with the famous quote that Harrison Ford said while trying to do the dialogue in Star Wars. George, you can type this stuff, but no one can say it. Of course, despite the relative difficulty of the George Lucas dialogue, they did mostly stick to the script. But give me 3 instances throughout the 6 movies of times when non-scripted dialogue did make it into the final movie. And if you get at least 3, then you'll be put into a drawing to win the blah 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 code, blah 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 cartel pack. Have fun, and I will see you next week.
Thank you, Chill. Obviously, I'll clean that up in post. Yep, send your
I can
entries
think
to...
of one right off the top of my head, but I'm not going to say anything this time because the last time I did, I gave the answer out.
Yeah, don't do that. Send your answers to OotiniCast@gmail.com by next Wednesday, and we'll do the usual drawing in next week's show when Chill is back. That will bring us to the holo feed. Let's see. So let's start with game update 2.8.1 is most likely going to come out next week. We don't know for sure. They have not confirmed this, but that will be 3 weeks after 2.8 dropped, which follows their usual cadence. It will also align with the double XP week, the first time we've actually had a 4 weeks, usually just the weekends. It will begin on Tuesday, 1st of July at 2 a.m. Central, which is 8 a.m. For you Brits, and 5 p.m. on Tuesday for us Aussies. And we'll run through for the 4 week, completing at those same times on the 8th of July, Tuesday, 8th of July. So yeah.
And this is also the same time that the double war zones happen, right?
In theory, actually, yeah. And as of 2.8.1, you're right, there will then be the double Warzone comms and credits for each match you play, but not for the actual missions themselves, the weeklies and the dailies. So just like with Galactic Starfighter now, and that will end with 2.8.1, it will switch over to the double comms and credits for Warzones. So PvP your heart out, basically.
They are also embargoing the Star Cluster pack and releasing the Club Vertica pack, if I'm not mistaken.
They are indeed. So there is a bit of a story there. So firstly, there was a bit of a problem with the Star Cluster Nightlife pack, as it turns out. The rarity of the items was mislabeled on the tooltips, etc. So people were saying that the prices of unlocking them in collections just didn't seem to match the rarities, and that was because the rarities, as described in the text, was actually wrong. However, their actual rarity, as in how often they were turning up, was correct, and the prices associated with them were correct. The only thing wrong was the associated text. But it's too late to fix it because it will be going away, as Stacey said in 2.8.1. And the reason for that is there are 2 Nightlife packs, the first one being the Star Cluster, the second one being the Club Vertica, which will become available in 2.8.1. Club Vertica will then run through and all the way to 2.9, which will drop on 19 August. And they're kind of a special shipment just for the event, that's running all the way from 2.8 to 2.9. And so as such, it's kind of a bit unusual in just how they've set it up, having this very small window for when they're available. Makes you wonder whether they'll be back next year when Suvada returns. Also, we don't really know what else is going to be in Game Update 2.8.1 in terms of content, but there is one small bug fix that we got a bit of early notification of. They are finally fixing the scamper/exfiltrate bug that has been
so awesome.
plaguing scoundrels and operatives. This has happened to me in Warzones. It's just painful. The actual effect is you attempt to scamper or exfiltrate, and you are, while that's happening, hit by a ballistic effect that moves you at the same time. It doesn't happen every time, but when it does, you cannot move. When you die and respawn in the war zone, you still can't move, and nothing you do will fix it. Though I've heard there are ways of like getting a sage to pull you might fix it or something, but typically you're just stuffed. You have to phase to actually change it, leave the war zone in effect.
Yeah, and I know this is supposed to happen outside of war zones, but it just seems like it happens so much more often in war zones. This is just going to be such a huge relief.
Yeah,
To
it's
all
probably the
scoundrels
best.
And operatives.
Yeah, it's probably the place where you're most likely to be hit with something ballistic while scampering. So that's why it happens mostly in war zones. But yeah, I've heard it happen elsewhere as well. Now, next, this, I'm still not sure it's actually official. It's called the Summer Pass. It was discovered by Dolphy on the website, but there is absolutely no messaging or advertising around it that I've managed to encounter. So as far as we know, it could actually just be something that they thought about doing and then thought better of it. I did actually try to purchase a summer pass just to see if it would work on my free-to-play account, which I've still got. And it didn't work. It just errored out. It just couldn't get to the payment method. So maybe it's not enabled.
What?
And
That's strange.
yeah, so the actual deal itself is actually pretty sweet. You basically get $40. You get 4 months of sub time. So, and you can't get this, you can't pay this if you actually are currently subscribed. The deal is supposed to run out on 30 June, it seems. So there's only a few days left, and since I haven't actually told anyone about it, it's probably not real. So a $10 per month sub is pretty sweet. You do not get any cartel coins, or you actually get like 50 per month, basically. So compared to, for example, the 600 you get with the 6-month subscription, yeah. I actually worked it out just to see whether the summer pass is actually better value than a sub. And when you take the cartel coins you get into consideration, the summer pass is better value than just paying monthly. It's just a little bit better than, well, a little bit worse than paying 3 monthly, and definitely worse than paying 6 monthly, just in terms of value. Though honestly, if I had the option of paying $10 a month and getting no cartel coins, I'd be perfectly happy with that. But yeah.
So you're saying that they haven't even spoken to this? Like, is this this a thing or not?
That's just it. I have actually reached out to Musco to find out, but no response, so I don't know. So we're just reporting this because other people have pointed it out.
And it is on their website.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Now, and the real question is, if somebody gets this sub, do they get the early access to the Galactic Strongholds? Because it's July 11th is the last day for 3 rooms instead of 5.
Very interesting. The wording of it implies that you do receive, in their words, all subscriber benefits and rewards. So effectively you are subscribed, or the only difference is you're getting less cartel coins every month. So
yeah,
because probably also unlocks McKeb.
I have friends that sub and unsub on regularity, and they're not subbed right now. This would be an excellent opportunity to take advantage of it, get the Galactic Strongholds edition. You know, it's 4 months. It certainly carries you through the launch of it, and then they could have their rooms.
Right. So again, we don't know if it's a thing. It's out there. I'll include the link to it, but it's www.sweator.com/summer-pass if you want to at least try it out, if you happen to be unsubscribed at this time. Okay, and a couple more things in the news. Actually, let's just give a quick hello to the newest member of the community team, Hillary Nicole, also known as Pocket, has joined the community team as the community coordinator. Her role will be to help maintain relationships with fansite streamers, guilds, and any other aspect of the SWTOR community. And so that basically means she's our contact at BioWare now. She's a reasonably well-known internet personality. You've probably seen her reporting on various games. She's certainly a long-term hardcore gamer. So, welcome, Hillary.
I feel bad I've never heard of her, but I'm glad they've got a 4th person. Finally, it's been a while since they had 4. And yeah, hello, welcome. I'm actually really excited to see what she has to do to contribute to the team.
Definitely. And lastly in the news, the Scoundrel and Operative Q&A. It was available last week, but we sort of ran out of time, so we left it to this week. So there's the usual 3 questions from the whole class representative program. The first was PvE, and the gist of it was taking a step in the right direction to fixing concealments, poor survivability, and this was all in the PTS for 2.8. And they just wanted to elaborate on where they were going with it, basically, and what's up with lethality. And the answers were, basically, they've added the interrupt to the immobilize effect on the, what's it called, knockout. So it will actually now interrupt as well as actually immobilizing them. So it used to be the knockdown, the stun, effectively, but now it will actually interrupt whatever they're doing in addition to immobilizing them. And yes, the stun does actually act like a regular... Sorry, the interrupt does in fact act like the regular interrupt. It will lock out them from doing anything else. And there is a bit more there that I won't talk about because it's an exploit. Yeah, so that's nice that they did that. I'm sure people would prefer that the knockdown was returned, but anyway.
Well, my biggest question has always been, and it's nice to see that they're adding to this. I'd love to actually know what the reason is behind. Like, fine, don't knock them down because there's graphical issues in the way that standing back up is still a stun even when you pop your CC. That was the big reason. It would be interesting to find out why they chose not to just make it a stun. Kick them in the knee, but they don't fall down.
Right. Which is what they did with the Shadow, basically.
Right.
An assassin. Yeah.
So clearly there was a decision not to make it be a stun at all any longer, and it would be cool to get some feedback on that. But
right.
At least they're improving it.
Now, the one big change that was really good, particularly for PvE, is to their survivability. They just changed a couple of things to reduce the AoE damage that Scoundrels and Operatives take, and there's also another, when you use your stem boost, you do get some extra damage reduction as well. So that was something that was apparently sorely missing, particularly in some of the Nightmare Mode encounters. They were just kind of fragile, basically, and so now they actually have the survivability to go along with their pretty decent damage.
Yeah, and that's a big thing because when you're taking in melee, especially in this game, honestly, any MMO, melee characters are vulnerable to damage more than ranged, and giving them that protection allows them to do boss damage on par with others and not be stressing the healers over much.
Yep. They recognize the PvE damage is good, and they reckon it's in a good place, and they're probably not going to buff it anymore, but they will be adding some missing utility, basically, to give raid groups a reason to bring them, in addition to damage. I suppose that makes sense. Did the Pamela have any thoughts on that, Fred?
Sorry, I was in the chat room. The utility is actually really fascinating. The fact that they will be addressing that is actually really cool. That they will be, they've got ideas. They aren't ready to go forward with it. And a lot of what we're going to be going over on these class balance changes is we've already seen there's rapid class balance changes happening with every single patch now, and the fact that they're thinking about it means it's going to happen. Like, you just got to keep in mind that we're past the days of the first 2 years of this game where you would go 6 months without a class getting addressed. Class balance changes are happening rapidly, and it's nice to see that they address it and that they are coming up with ideas for it. Also, I'm really glad to hear that they're coming up with ideas. They're not trying to duplicate what other classes bring, but it sounds like they're trying to do it so that they can still be a unique class, not a mere copy of someone else.
Yeah, agreed. And finally, the right-hand tree, lethality and dirty fighting, didn't get any changes because they ran out of time, not because they don't want to do something about it. So, yeah, fair enough. And they are planning something for 2.9. Yeah.
Perfect timing now that I just switched to that tree. Okay, so it's probably actually 2.9 is probably not that far away. So there's going to be a bunch of changes coming up for it.
Yep.
And for me, it actually worked out perfect because I'm still just getting used to the whole system of the rotation and everything. So works out for me, I guess.
All right, the PvP question. So, yeah, they're being excluded from ranked, apparently, in terms of DPS anyway. And the answer was being interpreted as, we'll just switch to healing because Operative Scoundrel healers are fantastic in PvP, as we all know.
Yeah, you know, honestly, this is the one that's been the most contentious. But if you actually read it straight, for example, many current Operative Scoundrel players might tell you that the best choice you can make in PvP as an Operative Scoundrel is to be a healer, and our internal data would also back up such a claim. That's why people freaked out. But if you follow that up with the next question, where they ask, you know, why, you know, well, they say, explain to us why you think that this means that they are now viable because you've added survivability. They say, we don't know if this is enough yet.
Right.
We need to see it on live in order to be able to make that decision. We know that we've made changes and they could have a significant impact, but until we see the numbers and see it play out and see their survivability and how they're comparing, because survivability changes in PvP are a huge deal. And you don't want to be like boosting DPS or doing other things. You don't want to, you know, they said in the last class balance changes that they don't want to be over buffing people anymore because it means they're going to have to return to them and nerf them. They'd rather do smaller pieces. So this is the first step, and they said we don't know yet.
Yeah, and
we'll return and it. Well, where's the quote? It says. Oh yeah, we are not yet certain that the improvements we have made for damage-dealing operatives scoundrels will be enough, but we will continue to monitor their performance in PvP and continue to improve them if necessary. Basically, they gave them survivability changes. They now need to see it in live because the test servers are not enough for you to really see that in a dynamic PvP environment. Then they're going to be returning to it, and I think we can believe them. A lot of people say, oh, that's just the nonsense that they spew out, that they're not giving us extra information, but I think you can believe them 100%, especially with the recent track record of rapid class changes. If it's not enough, they're going to help some more, but they need to see first before they add more.
Right. And a reminder, 2.9, and the right-hand tree, as I've mentioned already, is getting some love in 2.9. So that may be made even more viable.
Which I think a lot of people need to remember too. The right-hand tree of every single advanced class is shared with, you know, their base class companion, you know, gunslingers and scoundrels. So gunslingers might actually see some interesting things coming out of the changes that they start implementing to lethality, which would be good because gunslingers would like to see that too.
Yeah. Okay, finally, there is the wildcard question, and they asked a bunch of quality of life stuff to just run through the answers. They're talking about you used to be able to get in the cover, which would stop people, for example, JKs jumping to you or whatever, and they're not getting that back by whereas saying this is the way they want to be. They do not want scoundrels and operatives to be a cover-based class. That's what gunslingers and snipers are about. Reliably leaving combat after a precise amount of time is a problem that has plagued stealth classes for a while now, but hopefully they can fix the issue or find a much more reliable way of dropping combat in PvP. So there are issues with that. I've heard this again and again. So
didn't this actually arise when they made some changes to how you vanish? And I thought it actually all originated because they made PvE operations changes about bosses. Like, you could still be randomly targeted by a boss based off of certain boss mechanics, even if you were stealthed out and not in combat. And I feel like this might have actually tied in, you know, a negative influence over PvP.
Right.
Which makes it sound like it might be a much more complicated issue, and, you know, maybe people need to recognize that, yeah, they're looking at it, but it's not easy.
Yeah. Like identifying the scamper bug, which they have done. So it took a long time, but they did actually get there. Set bonuses, they're not going to buff them because their damage and healing output is just fantastic. So that's their answer on that. And and then actually add the animation back for the hidden strike / shoot first knockdown animation for weak and standard enemies in PvE. So that's just a bit of flavor, which they can probably return at some point. So there you go. Any final words from the pummeler on that, Red?
Well, no, but from me, that final line is important. We have some pretty big changes planned for Operative Scoundrels in the more distant future, but we can't discuss the details at this time. This is just reiteration throughout all of their answers. They still have stuff coming. This is not the be-all, end-all. Don't freak out. For the near future, we'll be monitoring Operative Scoundrel performance in PvE and PvP and making any needed improvements as we can. I mean, I think they put that out there and the rest of the community just forgot to read the last line. They are watching and they've made changes and they recognize that there may be more changes to be made, but we've got to see it in the wild before they can start doing more. So that's cool. And I'm really interested in some of these more creative changes. And all of these class changes and all these class answers. I think a lot of people don't acknowledge the fact that I've been what I appreciate. BioWare has been very good about not homogenizing classes. When they come up with solutions, one, they've come up with very creative solutions to avoid having cross PvE and PvP conflicts with those changes. And two, they're really creative. They keep allowing these advanced classes to have their own flavor and style. And, sometimes you got to wait for it, and we all hate that sometimes, but sometimes you might want to get in there and try it out and find out that all the naysayers are wrong. It's actually in a good place right now.
Fair enough. All right, that'll bring us to our community section. Quick producer note, Stasi, we will actually get through the rest of this pretty quick, and then we'll be on to the Bomber Roundtable. So we're trying to get through it as quick as we can, but so I do want to leave at least half an hour for that. Does it sound reasonable?
Perfectly okay with me.
All right.
Yeah, it starts speeding up now.
Yeah. First up, we have the Utini Templars rating report from Cal. This week we plan to revisit Hard Mode Dread Fortress on our first night of raiding, but that was not to be. The patch gods decided we didn't need to raid because they needed to put a band-aid on the skin knees SWTOR got after the gambling event went live. Harsh, Cal. But anyway, Greg was busy playing Housemaid for his wife on our second night, so we decided to put our trust in the Group Finder and do whatever op was running. We had 7 in our group, and Group Finder got us at DPS in short order. But after a couple of us made a couple of newbie pulls, our random DPS decided to leave. We queued for a replacement and decided to just keep going until one arrived. We made it to the weekly boss without a replacement. Could Group Finder still be broken? I've actually heard this quite a bit. I'd like to know if anyone has actually been in a Group Finder op where someone's dropped and they've actually got a replacement via the Group Finder.
Stasi actually put up a pretty interesting tip in the chat room.
I think that's what I was referring to, yeah. I posted that a lot of the times people don't realize that one of the options in Group Finder, which is unchecked by default, is to join in-progress ops groups or flashpoint groups.
Oh.
So most of the time people queue and realize that they don't have that box checked because you have to open up a separate window for that. And that is a large part of the reason why ops groups and flashpoint groups end up waiting a really long time for a replacement player.
Damn, that's good to know. Wow.
Yeah.
I thought it was, I could have sworn it was on by default, but clearly not.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that at all, and having it said, I do think I recall every time, because I've always seen that checkbox and always been sure to add it. Because like dailies and everything for flashpoints and whatever, all I care about is finishing, so if I backfill for the daily, I'm okay with that. I don't need all the other bosses.
Exactly.
So I've always put that check in, but I can understand a lot of people might not have done that, or they want to see the whole thing, because they don't have the experience that I've had. So.
All right, so that is a fantastic tip from Stasi. Yeah, make sure that you have checked the box that indicates that you are willing to join an in-progress flashpoint or operation. All right, moving on. Made it to the weekly boss, and realized that we can't get through the phases with only 7 in our raid group. After saying a few choice words about Group Finder on Mumble and waiting another 10 minutes, we decided to call it a night. So that was our week. No hard mode progression, and not even a story mode weekly done thanks to Group Finder. Not good.
Ouch.
Yep. All right, next, a couple more guildmates of ours. Bill and Turg's Excellent Adventure. That was self-titled.
Oh, I love that. I love it.
Wednesday night, we rounded up Utini Nights for 8-man story mode Terra from Beyond. Bill and I were joined by Lamassi, Karanome, Warrage, Zandramas, and some nice pugs, Jono, Ten Tesla, and Trier. It was the first time in Terra from Beyond for 3 of our folks, but we got the first 2 bosses down on the first try. Operator 9 was a little trickier to explain. I can imagine that. So it took a couple attempts to learn the dance before defeating it handily. Kefis proved to be no match for us, and I was especially impressed at the flawless execution by our first-timers. We managed to get the Terra from Beyond down to around 20% a couple of times, but it was getting late and sleepiness got the best of us. All in all, a great success. Very cool, guys. It's been great to see so many people active in Utini Nights of late. If only we could spend a little more time with Utini Rage as well. So we just seem to be more pub side these days. But anyway, and finally, Kuze sent us the latest report from the Jawa Joyride that he has started. The Jawa Joyride traveled the galaxy on a hunt for world bosses this week. We went by level from easiest to hardest, starting with Coruscant and ending on Hoth. We did run into some issues on Tatooine and Nar Shaddaa due to the bosses either in the process of being killed or already gone. In the end, we downed the world bosses on Coruscant, Alderaan, Taris, and the 2 on Hoth. There are many more out there, and the Jawa Joyride will surely face them in the future. Moving forward, the plan is to run a quick op and then pick a world boss to take down after. Thanks to the Jawas that came out, Mersul, Lamassi, Karanome, Prottle, Bo, and 2 our girl Jawas, Mariah, and Rub. Until next time, peace and romp rat grease. And just in a bit of guild news, there is a thread on our forum that Ari started, just asking everyone to just tell the story of where they or how they name their characters. It turns out that pretty much all of us have got some kind of scheme. I actually also describe where my handle TO actually comes from, and no, it's got nothing to do with my habit of drinking tea. But there's lots of other great stories about just the schemes that people use, so I'll link to that in the show notes. It's just interesting reading if you don't know of us. And finally, now I'll skip that for next week. All right, that'll bring us to the Force feedback section where we read your tweets and emails and stuff. Start with the Malgadar. Quote of the week 146. Well, based off their definition of RNG, one would hope it's in a cycle rather than random. Apparently you said this, Red. Malgadar comments, let's just be glad that adding a Group Finder feature didn't break anything else, because that would be terrible. I don't actually remember you saying that, but okay.
RNG one would hope is in a...
I'm sure you had something in mind. That made sense.
Oh yeah, I do believe that. I was hoping that it wouldn't be entirely random, because then, well, anyway, I do recall.
Okay. Quote of the week 147 from last episode. I might be losing my dirty mind with my age. Red questioning his maturing mind. Dr. Malgadar recommends you PvP with Moff Chong all weekend. That should get you back on track. Yes, it would. Actually, Chong is not mellowing with age, as it turns out.
Staying enraged with something else?
Something like that. All right. A tweet from Ferris Terran. I'd love placeholder content for all the UI when editing the SWOTOR interface to make it obvious what's in that module. So when you're using the interface editor, imagine if it actually populated it with some test data. I'm thinking raid groups here, so you can actually see your ops frame populated, maybe even with like 16 people.
So you don't actually have to be in the ops group to see how that ops information is being distributed in the cell.
Wouldn't that be nice? Like, you just get a little slider that says, all right, fill up with 8, 12 players, whatever. That kind of thing, just so you can actually see what it looks like. Add a focus target even if you're not actually there. So that would be great.
Yeah, I'd expect that people would also really love to see like a grid on their screen just so they could have everything centered up properly.
Agreed. All right, skipping that one for this week. We have an email from Oofalong, which Red is going to read and comment on.
Indeed. Oofalong says, "Hi, OotiniCast folk. First off, I didn't intend this long wall of text. It just happened. I was a little behind on my podcasts, so I just got around to listening to episode 146 today. There were 2 points I wanted to expand upon based on your conversation with Pez. Tor parses APM, or activations per minute. Tor parse calculates an APM number that can be misleading for several classes. Basically, Tor parse looks in the combat log for every entry that includes character name activates ... This counts obvious things like attacks, like instants, casts, and channels. However, it also includes any other time the player clicks a button, which includes things like relics and adrenals. Also included in Tor parse's actions per minute is every offensive and defensive cooldown, as these are technically activated abilities. Thus, when Pez said that you should be at 35 actions per minute, this is a very low number, as every class has some extra abilities and or adrenals they should be using when parsing for top numbers on the dummy. For instance, the Marauder's Sentinel's actions per minute should be over 45. Sources of accuracy and the necessary level. Redna and Pez got into a bit of a debate on this subject, and I wanted to provide some more context. As Redna said, since 2.0 dropped, each class has needed 5 slots with accuracy. The slots can either be enhancements, earpiece, or implants. There are a total of 10 slots available, so the other 5 slots could have alacrity or surge. I don't know Sorc Sage DPS very well, but every other class does not benefit from stacking alacrity. That is, the extra surge would be preferred over any alacrity. Thus, we can assume standard allocation was 5 accuracy and 5 surge. In 180 tier gear, 5 slots with accuracy give us a rating of 470, which equates to 6.43% accuracy. In addition, you will get 3% accuracy from a talent in one of your trees, and 1% from max affection with your melee tank companion. Thus, the total accuracy will be 110.43%. Now, with 186 gear, which is our latest gear, before the nightmare, right, Tio?
186 is what we're getting out of current nightmare mode.
Okay, so it's a current nightmare mode. With 186 quality gear, it is possible to achieve a rating of 408 with just 4 slots devoted to accuracy. Inclusive of all buffs and talents, this provides a net total of 109.67%. Now, adding 1 accuracy augment will increase the overall to 110.07%, so just over 110. However, it does so at the expense of primary stat. Is this trade-off worth it? Recall that your 2 other options are alacrity or surge. The easy one being surge. Assuming we stacked 0 alacrity currently, we would now have 6 surge pieces for a total of 24.6%. Note with 5 surge pieces, we have 22.8%. Thus, the question becomes, is sacrificing 32 primary stat worth 1.8 surge? I haven't done the math for every spec, but I have yet to come across a situation where this is a good trade-off. The other scenario was to pick up alacrity. Recall, alacrity helps with resource regeneration, reduces cast channel times, and reduces the global cooldown. It does not affect the cooldown of abilities, though. I also wanted to mention, me personally, dots or hots, they don't increase in ticking time either, which would be a big difference for alacrity. There are some specs where alacrity serves no purpose and or harms a spec. As examples, Sith warriors and Jedi knights. They attack to generate resource with their focus or rage. So there is no resource benefit from alacrity. Predominantly, they have instant cast abilities, so there's no benefit to the reduction in channel or cast time. They do, however, have reduction in global cooldown, though it's small. It might be an upside. In order to understand why a shorter global cooldown can be bad, let's examine Pyro Merc's Assault Specialist. Commandos. Everything revolves around a 6-second proc of Rail Shot High Impact Bolt. Thus, reducing the global cooldown makes it so the proc does not line up, which is a huge DPS loss. You've got 4 abilities if you have no reduction to your global cooldown. So you want to be able to cast 4 and then throw your Rail Shot or High Impact Bolt. If you mess with the global cooldown, it actually messes with the timing of everything else. In summary, classes whose attacks are instants and or who have time-based procs will most likely not benefit from Alacrity, which means our best option is to use 5 accuracy slots. It does put us over the limit, but the alternatives are worse. Finally, do I need to include that?
No.
Well, finally, I didn't follow what Pez was saying about eliminating accuracy from your earpieces and implants. This makes no sense to me. I think actually the point that he was making, and this is Redna speaking, I kind of agree with Pez on a certain end of it. If you choose to use earpieces and implants, there's no detraction from doing so. But when you do so, that means that every time you upgrade an earpiece or an implant, you have to replace it entirely with an item that has accuracy on it, as opposed to if you don't have it on your earpieces and implants and have it on your gear instead, it's easier to swap out an enhancement as an upgrade rather than the entire item. And I think that's where he was leading with it, which is true. When you're stripping out and streamlining your gear, an enhancement can be easier to deal with than the entire item. But there is no statistical reason why you would choose one over the other.
Okay. All right, let's just quickly get through the rest of the feedback. We just had... We had a tweet from Dakar. He said, this is referring to the Orabesh trainer. This is absurdly entertaining. Every time I get a word figured out, I can hear a line in the movie where it's used. I may have seen this film a few too many times. Haven't we all? So last week, the Orabesh trainer was updated to use words from Star Wars A New Hope, Episode 4, and I've subsequently added the words from episodes 5 and 6. So now when you do the Orabesh trainer, all the words presented to you will appear somewhere in those 3 movies, which is kind of cool, because every so often one comes up and you think, you can just picture the scene where it was used. Anyway. From Greg Carter of the Utini Templars, first grand emotes pack isn't very grand. 150 cartel coins, you can get 1 item. Can be an emote or a mood, even though the tooltip sort of indicates it's only an emote. So there you go, just a warning. And Chong sent us an image of them, several players, using Dejaric tables and lead share emotes and stuff to look like they're playing a game of Dejaric, which is kind of cool.
That's actually kind of clever.
Yep. At Descartes, what I'm seeing for Group Finder Ops is folks making 8-mans on fleet, getting on voice, and then queuing. Reduces stupidity. Yeah, some of the operations you can do, some of those fights really do require a little bit of coordination, and typing all that stuff out is possible, but painful. So if you can sort of get everyone together on Mumble or Ventrilo or whatever, yeah. Now, we had a message from Gerald about in-game VoIP. We're going to save that for next week because it could be an interesting discussion in its own right. And Darklighter, also from the Utini Templars. The question from last week was a Matrix Cube and a Basic Com Relic, the one you can buy with Basic Coms, better than... Was that the right answer for when initially gearing up, if we can actually get some of the better relics from drops? And the answer is neither. Go with the one that you can purchase with Warzone comms, the Warzone relics. You have to PvP a bit, but it doesn't really take that long. You probably get it done in 4 or 5 matches. Speaking of Darklighter, he sent us in a couple more Where's Darklighter images. I'll include them in the show notes so you can have your guess. I actually guessed the first one, but yeah, anyway, and I was with him when he did the second. But yeah, there. As usual, this is using the trip where you can scroll your camera way the hell out and you can get some pretty amazing imagery.
Yeah, this is great. I actually did it. The one thing I learned is that as soon as you go back in, because I ended up going into PvP, so I went and set my camera down. You can change that file type, but as soon as you change it using the in-game percentage ranges, you cannot actually, like if you switch it to 100%, 100% is not that new value setting. It goes back to all the defaults.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right.
So but it's a lot of fun.
I didn't include it in here. But Greg Carter also sent in a screenshot of both of the forges on Tython that you do as part of the opening missions for the two classes there, the Jedi Knight and the Jedi Consular. Include that in the show notes too. They're actually quite close together. You can only see that when you actually sort of scroll all the way out. They are two separate areas. At Darksplat told us that they use the 3 heals method in Corruptor Zero, so it might work for us as well. And he linked a video of his raid team doing it. Ben, I'm going to skip that one. We're just running a little short on time. I do want to include that eventually. From Aish, that's AHSH, to Red, listening to the new OotiniCast, the Nova Dive is my favorite ship. Can put up big numbers.
I've spoken to him. It's Ash.
Sorry.
Yep.
We got a tweet from Ash. This is to Red, listening to the new OotiniCast. The Nova Dive is my favorite ship. Can put up bigger numbers in the Flash, but the Nova can do a lot. So you had a discussion with him about it.
Yeah, I let him know because we've had Orders Karada on as our scout, one of the scout reps on our previous discussions, and I know that he can put up bigger numbers than a Flashfire or a gunship with his Nova Dive, and I hashtag that impressed because he plays a Nova Dive like no one else. And Jubbs did follow that up by saying that he's broken 100k in a deathmatch with the Nova Dive. However, he did have a bomber that was resupplying his rocket pods for him.
Right. Very cool. And finally in the feedback, email from Trey Sheen, who says, I'm a big fan of GSF and was really excited to see it featured in this past episode. Galactic Starfighter is all I do now in SWTOR. I've travelled to Jungma, Jedi Covenant, Prophecy of the Five, Ebon Hawk, and the Harbinger, all in search of the best server for GSF. I even crossed the ocean to Red Eclipse for the European experience. To anyone looking for a GSF-focused server in the North American region, though, it's Ebon Hawk for East Coast and the Harbinger for West. They have the quickest sustained queues throughout the day. I have characters on both servers, but shameless plug for Ebon Hawks because that's my main home. So what do you guys think about that?
I went and checked out the website. I liked it. He's got a lot of good information there, especially for if you're just getting started.
Oh yeah, we should mention that for tips, builds, and guides. He was just wanted to do us a shameless plug for his website, which is constantwarfare.com/GSF. So it's kind of a hobby for him. He links everything that he's shared about Galactic Starfighter articles, videos. He's hosted a few help streams on Twitch. So yeah, he really is all about helping struggling players through the same trials and tribulations that he experienced.
Yeah, as for the first part about servers, and I know Stassi has more to say because he's actually done experimentation of his own, but for me, my snarky response is, if you haven't played on the Bastion, I'm at a loss as how you can recommend anyone over it, because people who've been listening to the show know that I've been having great success on the Bastion. But honestly, what I take away from that is that there are a lot of servers out there that are clearly not hurting for GSF. They've got great communities on various other servers, and I might totally prefer the Bastion, but you don't have to come to the Bastion to have a community.
Yeah, I guess I've only played on the Harbinger, so I didn't really have much of an opinion on how it is on different servers. I should try it out.
Stasi, what do you reckon in terms of server populations in GSF?
I think if I had to add anything that He did mention that Ebonhawk is an East Coast server, so a lot of the times I roll over there to do dailies with my friends. It's usually really late at night, maybe 3 in the morning their time, whereas it's only midnight Pacific. Uh, I'm still getting Q pops there, which is a miracle. I mean, on Bastion at 3 in the morning, I'm not even awake, but I've been told by Dracolich that we have Qs rolling all night long. So I would encourage people that play on Pacific around 7 to 10 to come to the Bastion. We have so many veterans queuing up. I think every single game is challenging in one form or another. It's just amazing how many good players have come back to the game. That being said, I totally agree with Redna. The Harbinger, the Ebonhawk, the Bastion, they all have amazingly large GSF communities. The Harbinger is probably the largest of them. I'd say the Ebonhawk is probably the smallest of them. Again, this is only personal experience. But as he pointed out, there are a lot of servers that aren't hurting for GSF players, and it's amazing to see how large the communities have actually gotten since early access.
I agree.
And, the funny thing is, too, and this is a little bit outside of the conversation, but what's remarkable is the number of people that I run across. Like Stassi and I both know people that they literally subbed for GSF. I know people that have. Ash actually mentioned that he was not a sub, had never played Tor until GSF went live, and now he's joined into guilds and started doing operations and everything else. But GSF was the intro. So GSF is a huge component to this game. And Bastion, I think, from my personal experience, now that I've actually started hopping some servers and switching around, there's a catch-22 to it. I think we've got a huge bustling community. Unfortunately, a lot of the people on the Bastion will switch sides if it starts to become imbalanced, to try and balance the skill level of the players that are queuing up at the time. But there's certainly an opportunity. I feel like there's so much competition on the Bastion that there's a threat of being blown out of the water. If you don't mind losing and getting steamrolled because you're going to get better by playing people that are good and they're going to give you no quarter.
Exactly.
The Bastion's a great place to go, and you will learn. And even when I queue sometimes, I might be in there with one friend, and I realize that I'm queued up with a bunch of people, and they clearly started playing this game after subs got extra ships. But then that becomes my personal goal to be the best on my team. And contribute, get some kills. Sometimes, there's only 5 to 10 kills on a team, but if I can be 4 to 5 of those, I still feel like a success. And you have to learn through trial by fire sometimes, and I do think the Bastion is just excellent for that. But like I said, if you can get in with our guild groups and whatnot, and do queues with friends, it's a beautiful community on the Bastion.
And I think Harbinger is getting better at that as well, because I know there's been a couple of people who've whispered me on one of the pub versus pub matches or imps versus pub, and there's one of those two people who've got tunes on both sides. This guy whispered me and said, "Sorry, I keep on taking you out all the time, but I know how bad you are, kind of thing. So you're
on a couple of lists.
Just target you out." And it's probably not me specifically, but it's just any gunships. They've got to be taken out first anyway.
Yeah.
No, dude, you're on a couple of lists. I'm sure.
So at this point, almost pretty sure that would be the case. All right, so let's roll into the final segment of the show, the Sarlacc Digest, where we discuss the issues for 1,000 years or until we run out of time. So this is our Bomber Roundtable, which is the third in our series. We had the original Gunship Roundtable with Dan Ginadai and the Scout Roundtable, and we will be having a Strike Fighter Roundtable featuring Tresheen and maybe a couple of other experts we'll get hold of when we do that. But for now, it's a Bomber Roundtable. Fair enough. Over to you, Stasi. You're going to run this for us.
All right. Well, firstly, I guess I'm going to go and plug my guide on the official Galactic Starfighter forums. I have a Stasi's Galactic Starfighter guide. It has all sorts of information. Newer players, there are links to YouTube videos. There are links to other guides. Now that I've seen Tresheen's, I think I should add it to there as a link too. But you can find practically everything. I give you my own personal recommendations for ships, components, builds, the channels to join, guilds on different servers, different pilots that you can ask for help on different servers, all sorts of information. And I receive a lot of feedback from the community, including some suggestions and discussion in that thread. So feel free to drop on by, take a look. Anything we can do to help you out. We want to get more players playing GSF. Doesn't matter what server you're on. That being said,
I
we should
just want to say I read through this guide and it was fantastic. It's like breaks it down into all the different ships, all the different the 3 different bombers, the different scouts, everything, and the ideal components for each of them. And then you've got the little tips and tricks for how to play that ship to the most effective way of completing the game. So it was a really good resource. So good job on that.
And I discovered I'd probably configured my Starguard all wrong, so I'm going to have to go back and spend 150,000 shipwreck I've accumulated on some new components, and might actually get back into it again. But anyway.
By the way, it's 147,500 to upgrade every single component. So you could actually do that without having to play at all and get every component you want.
Cool.
Is that if you have to buy new components, though, or is that just if you go with the stock components?
Well, I mean, add the cost of each component, but I don't think any of them are more than 2,000. So
It's already mastered, so it's just the ones I'm missing.
Yeah.
Double requisition. So do it.
Yeah, this weekend or this week.
Good point.
So I think we should cover the 3 bomber variants. I don't think I should really go through like a very detailed components crew, that kind of stuff. You can find that in a multitude of guides, and I'm sure the other guys have plenty of recommendations as far as that goes. But I will say one reason I listed the razor wire in my guide with a charged plating style build is because I believe that the razor wire, or the Rampart Mark IV on the Republic side, is great at satellite holding and domination. I don't really use it for much else. So I built it to defend and hold onto a satellite as long as possible. I know a lot of people run overcharged shield and other variants to that, but I found that this is the most useful for being able to hold onto a node through line of sighting, dropping mines, you name it. It's very interesting. I also wanted to see what the other 2 had to say about that. What kind of bomber build do you run on a razor wire? What do you use it for? Is it any different?
Razor wire Rampart, right?
Right.
The Rampart is... I run with the interdiction seismic mine build for that, just because I was playing around with this bomber before, and it just seemed really limited until I found some guide. It may have been your guide, I can't even remember, but where it's saying basically you can capture nodes really effectively, you can defend nodes really effectively by just circling it, and every 15 seconds you can drop the interdiction mine and the seismic mine, and if you go for the overcharged shield build, every 9 seconds you can boost your shield by an additional 10% or 20%, I believe it is. And I actually broke it down to how much damage this does just per cycle. So if you are running this build and you've got everything maxed out, the seismic mine does 565 damage with an additional 85 dot damage for a total of 650 every 15 seconds. The interdiction mine, 520 damage initially with 104 dot, which is 624 total. So for every 15 seconds, that's 1,274 damage you can deal to ships. So any unaware or ill-prepared scouts probably going to be taken out straight away with that. And if you can last 15 seconds and drop another round of those, then you're likely to take out anything else that's remaining, whether it's a strike fighter, gunship. Bomber may take another go of those, but it'll do significant damage, and if you're holding it by yourself, it's enough time for reinforcements to come help you out. So that's how I've been running that ship.
Okay, I need to be looking at mine. I think I'm running pretty much the same kind of setup that he has. I might be running slightly different mines.
In the meantime, I would actually like you guys to even comment on something that I was completely unaware of until this week, that there were changes to the bombers that has significantly affected mines in particular.
So there were 2 things. There was mines now obey line of sight, not only for the activation, but also for the detonation. So if Redna is on one side of the node and I'm attacking Dan on the other side of the node and I detonate the mine, odds are Redna will not take the damage. That's a pretty severe nerf or restriction to mines now. I think what that effectively does is limits razor wires and ramparts from being able to assault nodes and capping them by themselves, which is probably a good thing.
Right.
The other major change they made was that interdiction mine now does no longer deal straight to hull damage. It will deal shield damage first and then go to hull. That primarily seems like it was trying to prevent scouts from being one-shotted outright, and I think it did accomplish that to a large degree. So a Flashfire will no longer, or Nova Die will no longer run into a seismic interdiction combo and just instantly detonate. I think that's a good move for the game, though, because I don't think anyone likes just dying outright. I don't think that's ever a fun thing. There used to be the old bypass build with gunships where you did bypass, hit someone with a slug, and it would one-shot them. That still kind of exists to some degree with slug railgun one-shot crits. You can still take out a scout a lot of the time with those. And then there's also the extremely popular Battle Scout Blaster Overcharge targeting telemetry concentrated fire BAM two-shot you build. I think those kinds of things need to get tweaked downwards so that people actually have more fun playing the game instead of just instantly being defeated in the game. And that would probably draw a lot more players who originally quit because of stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely got to agree. Obviously, it's been a little while since I've played the Rampart, because I've been working on all the other ones since then, so I didn't even notice those patch notes come through.
No, I've been playing mostly the Sledgehammer, but I've noticed that I've just been getting eaten alive by scouts lately. So I'm not sure how thrilled I am with the new changes. I was kind of wondering, because it didn't seem like I got tore up that bad before, but dadgummit, it's been brutal lately, especially when I come up against the imps that are just scouts and gunships.
We have that happen a lot on the Bastion. As Redness said, our community is extremely competitive, so you will see people rolling in bombers and gunships every game. And I find a lot of the times I switch to like a Flashfire Sting and run that build, fly right up 500 meters behind them and blow them apart practically instantly, only to receive tells moments later, how did you do that? Why did you do that? You cheater, stuff like that. And it really is funny because it's one of the only ways that scouts can easily handle bombers.
Yeah, well, that happens to me a lot. I see them go zooming. They zoom past me, turn around, and before I can get back around to face them or anything, I'm dead. I try and drop some mines. Every once in a while, if they're a little beat up, I can sneak out a couple of mines. Every once in a while, I'll get somebody, but not that often.
Are you guys actually seeing strike fighters? Seems like there's scouts, bombers, and gunships, but a strike fighter is just out of favor at the moment?
I see a few strike fighters, but it seems like if I'm getting eaten up, it's by a scout.
Right.
Yeah, I would generally agree with that, except I'm mostly eaten up by gunships. I mean, my name is really popular on our server, so I'll see like 3 gunships on the enemy side and know that all 3 of them will have me targeted the second I move out into, anything, like any type of line of sight. I'm mostly scared of gunships, but I also play really well on a gunship, so it's fun doing that.
And I actually heard some news, it was on the forum somewhere, that one of the servers, I'm not sure which one it is, but they have like a Strike Fighter Monday night where a lot of the people who are actually in the GSF guilds actually just get on their Strike Fighters and just play on the Strike Fighters all night to try and build that up a little bit more. So that's kind of interesting, but haven't seen it on the Harbinger at all.
Yeah, they do that on the Ebonhawk on Monday nights. Interestingly, Tracy mentioned that strikes are in a sad place, and I actually agree with him there. You don't really see them that often, and one of the reasons why is the Decimus, or the Sledgehammer, on the Republic side, the new bomber that was released, is extremely effective multi-role. It can do practically everything a strike fighter can do, and it can drop mines in place of its secondary, like another missile or laser, and that is ridiculous when you think about it. Like, it has long-range offense with heavy lasers, concussion missiles, that kind of stuff, and it also has close-range defense with concussion mines and that sort of, or a drone if you choose to use that, and that is really silly. Like, I'm just shocked at how they came up with something like that, but they haven't changed anything in the strike fighter category. It seems like they really need some kind of help.
Yeah, I've had a bit of success at holding nodes with a couple of interdiction mines in front of me, and what's the long range? The long range weapon.
Oh, railgun sentry drone?
No, proton torpedoes. They take a while to lock on, but if I can pop them with a proton torpedo, that's it. They're done.
And that's what I was going to ask about the sledgehammer. Is I don't know if it's just the way I play my ships is more just I stick to my gun ship kind of style of playing, but I just seem to be missing something with the sledgehammer. I don't know if it's just I don't like the combination of the missiles and the mines, so I haven't really played around with it enough to find its uses, I should say. But it sounds like it's really effective in the right hands.
It is extremely effective, especially if you play it like a strike fighter. So you said you're a gunship pilot, and I know most gunship pilots are extremely aggressive, to the point of I see an enemy 15k away, I'm going to charge over to them and fire my railgun, even if they're like 16k away. If you play a bomber like that and just keep pegging an opponent and placing so much pressure on them, I found pressure works regardless of the ship you're piloting. If you can place a ridiculous amount of pressure on an opponent, they will make mistakes, doesn't matter how good the player is.
So do you find yourself being targeted more by people because they keep on coming after you and saying, "Oh, he keeps on getting me. I'm going to get him back at some point." So do you do like more of people everyone comes to you and tries to take you out?
That usually is the case, but I found I can utilize that pretty well by pulling enemies back over to friends. So I play a lot with them on Mumble, which is one of the voice over IP programs, and I call out targets that are on me, or if I need someone to peel for me, or if they need a peel, what I will usually do is allow people to chase after me while I am chasing another target that is not on me. So if you want to find a way to maximize the damage you're doing and your contribution to a match, I would say even while you're being chased by someone, always go after someone else. All the time.
Oh yeah.
And pretty much just reinforces what we were saying last week is always group up as much as you can. If group up before you queue for the game, or stay grouped up with your allies when you're actually in the match, even if you're not grouped up.
Yeah.
Makes it so much more effective, especially when you're on voice chat.
Definitely.
That's what I've been missing lately. I haven't been able to get like groups and get on voice chat and organize it lately. It is so much better when you can do that.
It really does help, and to the point, you can still do it solo if you realize that there's somebody chasing you, and they're chasing you, and like if you're in a strike fighter or a ship that's not a scout and you can't like clear yourself, if you can at least find another target that's right nearby, if you can get on them and be chasing them, then you chasing that target is still making you doing unexpected maneuverings and patterns that the other guy who's trying to get you, you might be able to get the guy you're on before he gets you, and then at least that way you took somebody out before you went down.
Or you can
definitely.
also lead them back to your mines too. You can hide them around the other side of an asteroid or something, and I'll do that sometimes. If I'm like starting to die, I try and keep my mine field within range.
Which
So
also
pro
reminds
tip
me,
for-
because of the way you described the line of sight issue, like say you had set yourself up on a node and then you realized that somebody came in on you because you were, Dan, you were saying that, the scout came pouring in and they just nuked the hell out of you. A common strategy prior to the line of sight was that you would actually just lay down all of your bombs and have as many as you could spread on top and on the bottom of that node. What you probably want to do is make sure that all your cooldowns are off so that when they come in and they get up in your face, that's when you drop your bombs, because it's not just top or bottom, it's also on the other side. If you're just sitting there circling, you actually want to be able to drop those and stop moving so that if they want to stay on you, they got to deal with the two mines you just put down behind you, and then they just blow up. You have to utilize the fact that you know that line of sight exists and use it to your advantage so that you make sure that you are in line of sight of the bombs that you have laid down.
And that's pretty much how I played the War Carrier. I play that one a lot more aggressively than even my gunship. So I normally drop in the team deathmatches in the QRT mesas. I drop the railgun sentry and one of the seeker mines down behind the wall, then fly up and start entice people over. I hide back down there, they fly over, and boom, they get hit with the mines, and it's a lot more easy to play that one aggressively. I think it's just a little bit more maneuverable than the Rampart. And like I said, I can't play a test for the sledgehammer. It doesn't seem to be my style of play.
So what do you guys think about Seismic versus Seeker?
Seeker I love. I think it's really effective because it's got the larger range. It's got the 4K range, whereas pretty much all the other mines, definitely on the Rampart, are I think 1,500 meters, I believe, unless you get them. I think you can get an extra 500 meters or an extra 10% on the range on those ones. So it's for defending nodes and taking out things. I think the extra range is a little bit more, gives you a little bit more flexibility as to how you play.
I also like to group up my seeker mines. I find 3 seeker mines hitting somebody at one time takes out a lot of ships or does pretty significant damage.
I am
One
all
one
for
seeker mine
seismic.
doesn't. Well, unless they're beat down, one seeker mine doesn't take out a ship, but 3 will.
Yeah, if you can get 3 seeker mines down hitting consecutively, you will deal a ton of damage to the enemy, which is also partly why I like running seismic mine. A single seismic mine will go straight to hull regardless, meaning you'll get something accomplished one way or the other. And this leads me to the best counter to seismic mine is charged plating and running a ton of damage reduction. So something I never see good bombers do, or bombers period, is I never see bombers alternating mine drops. Like, they don't just drop one and then the other. They drop both of them at the same time, and that's really bad because you can have one mine take out both of yours, or the enemy that's shooting at you can destroy both of them without even having to move his targeting reticle. So I think people need to start trying, alternating mines a little bit. You'll find it's actually a pretty interesting and effective strategy. The other thing too is a lot of bombers like circling nodes, and I mean like going around in a circle, and they just do this all day, which is why people have come up with just go into the node and shoot them. Yeah, that works for a lot of them because they just don't move. They just think that that's the only way to play bomber. But realistically, you should be going over there around the satellite, like flying in between the veins, doing everything you can to break line of sight, which is the key idea here, because everything that will kill you requires some form of line of sight to you. And if you're just constantly breaking that line of sight, you can dodge railgun hits, you can dodge proton torpedo locks, heavy lasers, you name it. It's just shocking how many people think bomber is such an easy class to play, but they miss very key important things like that.
Yeah,
And I was
it's
going
effective.
to ask, with the charge plating, how effective do you think that is? Because I know I've read a lot where the charge plating, because so many ships and variants have the 100% armor penetration or armor reduction, that damage reduction is useless for a lot of ships, it seems. So with the extra health from the bomber, is that what makes the difference?
The list of abilities that are used that have a lot of armor pen are mostly long-range abilities like slug railgun, heavy lasers, concussion missiles, proton torpedoes, thermite torpedoes. They all require a substantial amount of time on the target, or in the case of slug railgun, you have to anticipate where they're going when they will come into line of sight. So if you're dodging around a lot, you won't be taking a lot of that damage. And when you're hitting charge plating with a build like the one I've listed, you have 99% damage reduction. So anyone that's running cluster missiles, concussion without armor pen, quad lasers, you name it, they're not going to be able to deal damage to you during the time charge plating is up, which is the huge majority of the time. The time it's down, you're hopefully line of sighting them. You're on the other side of the node, dropping mines in their face, that kind of doing something to make them panic.
Which, if my numbers are right, it's up for 20 seconds out of a minute.
It should be 20 seconds out of 30 seconds, if I'm not wrong.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So
It's up
basically
the majority
80% of the time.
Yeah.
Cool, that's good to know. I'll have to play around with that.
Yeah, that was another one. It's the combination of the charge plating with, what's the activate called again?
I know which one you're talking about, but I don't use that. Nullify, that's it.
Well, no, the one that gives you the 99%. There's the defense.
Charge plating is the active. So you pop charge plating, and while charge plating is down, if you want to keep up that 99% or keep it as high as you can, you use Nullify. And Dracula's just corrected me, by the way. It's 19 seconds out of 30 seconds. So about two-thirds of the time.
So that's way more effective than the overcharged shielding then.
If you're utilizing it correctly,
10% or so to your shields.
I mean, even I tend to do stupid things to, like, from time to time, I'll see a gunship charging on me, and I just don't have the patience, play the razor wire game. So I just charge straight in, head on at them with heavy lasers blazing. It's fun. Might not be effective, but it's definitely amusing.
One of the problems I found with one of the Sledgehammer, I think it was the engine choices. I think Power Dive was one of them, and I just died so many times that I just had to switch it up. I just kept on taking off and then going around at real angles and flying into asteroids and satellites, and I thought, I'm just done with it.
Interesting story about Power Dive. Mm-hmm. I used to hate Power Dive more than any other engine ability because I would just always die to it. I couldn't figure it out. until I decided to, like pull my head out of my you-know-what and just read the tooltip. It says you're going forward, and then you go down. Going forward, then you're going down. So eventually I
If
just
you're
realized, hey, it's
upside
kind of
down,
like,
that still means you
yeah.
go up if you're upside down.
Exactly. So I use it like Koya Grand Turn, and I know I horribly butchered that, but that one throws you upwards and over. Power Dive takes you down, so if you orient yourself so that nothing is below you when you're using Power Dive, you'll go forward and down into an open area. So this is like really useful when you're flying into Kuat Mesa's B in Domination, the center objective, and you're flying right over one of those the metal structure into that center circle. If you hit Power Dive while you're flying over that, you'll go down right in the middle, like over the satellite.
Oh, and it'll drop you right
While
down
you're
on the top of it so you can capture it. Boom.
Right, and while you're under a satellite, if you point yourself so that you are directly in between two veins when you hit Power Dive, you'll fly through those veins and straight downwards. Which, I mean, hopefully there's nothing there. I mean, in most cases there isn't. Another interesting thing too with Power Dive, and this is why I love it now. I absolutely love it once I learned how it works. Is you can point yourself up at a 45-degree angle, hit Power Dive, and it will take you farther than just engine boosting.
Interesting.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
for the GSF devs that nerfed barrel roll, don't worry, I found Power Dive. 10-second cooldown too, so really useful. We talked a lot about the Razor Wire. What do you guys think about the Legion? That would be the War Carrier on Republic side.
Yep, War Carriers, like I said, is my favorite out of the three, just because it seems to have the extra range from having either the railgun or the missile sentry drone, and then the extended range on the Seeker mines. And like I said, it just seems to be a lot more maneuverable and have more group utility with the heal butt.
I used to have so much fun with the Legion taking into Team Deathmatch back before drones did not obey line of sight and shot right through objects, and just placing a drone right behind an asteroid near a whole bunch of enemies, just watching it get me kill after kill after kill after kill. It was just ridiculous.
I can't believe I didn't pick up on that before. I hate to back up one, but do you use the hyperspace beacon any with the other bomber?
So a team that we play against frequently on the Evanok, which is the Jung Ma group, so shout out to them. Renegade 1 and their group. I think Trey Sheen is actually part of their group. I use Hyperspace Beacon anytime I am playing with other players that I can communicate with. Specifically, Dracolich and I do it really well, just the two of us, when we're queuing. And I am fighting a really hard game, and the two of us are on bombers, and we can't rely on our teammates, and everyone's hammering straight for us. We will coordinate our hyperspace beacon drops so that when an ally dies, they can come right back into the fight, right on the satellite they need to protect. And this worked really effectively for a couple of matches where we would have like 3 or 4 gunships firing on the two of us, and we would just chain come in on that satellite. They would kill us every time, but we would just be able to do it so that we would never actually lose control of the node, which is the bottom line in a domination match. You don't want to lose those nodes. If you hold 2 of them, you win the game.
Right.
Is there another single ship in the game to date that has the hyperspace beacon?
No, and that was actually an idea that Varane, from the forums, and also someone I play with, brought up, was he thought that a good idea for making the Tier 2 gunship, or Type 2, or whatever you want to call it, the Dust Maker, or Comet Breaker, better was to give it hyperspace beacon. I thought that was really interesting, because it is a really useful ability.
Yeah, it is. Oh, and a tip on whenever anybody puts out a hyperspace beacon, pay attention to where you're pointing it. I've seen some disastrous results.
Don't face it towards a wall, for Pete's sake.
Yes, if you want, unless you want everybody to hate you.
That is a really, really good tip. The way hyperspace beacon determines where you exit is it will drop directly behind you, and the person using the hyperspace beacon will exit in the direction that you were facing when you dropped it.
Yes,
So
just
make sure that
point.
there's clearance behind you, and make sure that whatever direction you're facing isn't straight into a wall.
Yes, exactly what he said.
Now, isn't one, once you get the hyperspace beacon and you max it out, isn't one of them a faster turning radius, or is it only a speed boost?
I believe it's a speed boost,
Okay.
which
So,
is actually
in
also
which
really
case-
useful for defending nodes. So you
If-
drop that hyperspace beacon and you can move faster on the node too.
Right, because as long as you're within range of it, you can still move. But
I
if
think it's
you're
like
not
a 3,000
intelligent
radius
enough,
or something.
yeah. But if you're not intelligent enough to know how to make it point the right direction, don't have that on your tree. Because then you're just making them kill themselves faster.
Yeah, I can't tell you the number of
Safety
times
tip.
I've borrowed someone else's hyperspace beacon, came in just to a self-destruct. I was like, damn it, choose someone else's, and then I self-destruct into that one. I'm like, all right, I'm done with this. I'm gonna use the normal spawns, even on Denon, where you have to fly way farther. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take myself out of the fight those 30 seconds, so that I don't have to kill myself over and over.
Yes. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to back us up, but I wanted to talk about the beacons.
Can
Don't worry,
you
it's a good idea. I need
10
to go-
minutes? What can you do in 10 minutes or less?
I've got just a couple of quick tips to roll out at the end, but other than that, I'm good.
We can let you do it right now if you wanted to, or we could talk about the Decimus, the Sledgehammer.
Yep, go for
Yeah.
the sledgehammer.
All right, so Sledgehammer, it looks like people are building this completely differently, and I'm liking the options that I've seen and the variety of builds that people have come up with. I love heavy lasers. It's one of my favorite weapons. I will use heavy lasers anytime it's there and available. So I run heavy lasers, concussion missile, and concussion mine, and I play it kind of like a strike fighter, like I said. But the nice thing is you can always fly under a node, defend it, and stall for time because, hey, it's a bomber and it has a lot of HP, and you can just sit there and last a long time even with that. How do you guys use it? Because I've heard of quads and cluster builds and all sorts of other weird, crazy things. I haven't even thought of trying it.
I'm having a lot of success. Well, I feel I'm having fun anyway with the quad laser cannon. I'm actually kind of making the proton torpedoes work with an interdiction sentry drones. I'll put the drones out in front of me a bit because they will slow people down, and if I can reach out and touch them with a proton torpedo, a lot of the times they'll turn around and try and come right back at me and take me out, and then they'll run into the interdiction drones, get slowed down, and come in the range of the quad laser cannon, which finishes them off with a quickness.
And I haven't got anything on the sledgehammer. Like I said, I haven't had enough time to build it up or play around with it. So, like I said, I don't really like the missile part of it, but that's just I've got something I've got to suck up and get used to, I think, just to try it out.
Yeah, the requirement for the missile is anybody that's played bombers before is that it's so foreign that you're forced into
Right.
it. So it does make it seem very different. I've enjoyed the cluster missile a lot. I would like to know more about the people using different blaster types, because I tend to default to heavy. The range on it and the fact that it is the best ranged damage output, because I don't like to get close up in personal with people, so I like heavy blasters a lot. So that I can stay back, hang back, it's a lot easier to stay on top of somebody. And then with my cluster missile, the range with the heavy blasters and the clusters tie together so well that I can just, keep pelting them. And then if they decide to turn around and come back at me, I drop my cluster mine, or not cluster,
Your concussion mine.
concussion mine, and it's just like, just fine, come at me, I'll fly past you, and you can fly into my mine, because I'm pooping it behind me.
So two things on that. One, you guys have mentioned interdiction sentry drone, and we were talking about teamwork earlier. Teamwork with interdiction sentry drone. You can run interdiction drive to slow an enemy. You can run concussion missile with that slow to chain slow an enemy. Gunships, their snare on ion railgun was just buffed. So if you combine two of these, you can slow an enemy to a crawl or literally dead in space, where you can sit there and plink away at them with pretty much any type of laser. That being said,
taking scouts down.
I really like running heavy lasers primarily because of the armor penetration on them. I mean, the range and everything else is a great benefit too, but I like having some kind of armor penetration weapon available so that I can handle pretty much any target that I come across, which is one of the reasons I favor it. The downside to heavy lasers, though, is you can't really circle around a satellite and shoot heavy lasers at people because their tracking penalty is so terrible. And a way I've found to counter that is by using the same co-pilot ability I use on my gunship, which is Wingman. I really encourage people to try out Wingman. If you haven't tried it already, the accuracy boost you get from that will let you do all sorts of things you didn't even think you could do.
Wingman, for those of you that don't know it, is it actually increases your accuracy by 20%, and any of your teammates that are within, I think it's 2,000 meters, they also get an increase to their accuracy for 20%, and it lasts for 20 seconds. Accuracy is why you can actually be targeting somebody away from center. So, and I think it's 10%, 10 degrees off of center with no penalty is a 20% accuracy increase. So that means that you can do as much damage a lot further off of center without decreasing in damage.
Right, for heavy lasers. Did you want to cover those tips? So you had a bunch of tips
yeah.
to throw out.
So, I've got 2 quick tips for GSF.
3,500 meter range on Wingman. Tia, you can edit that. Sorry.
You're all good. So, first quick, super easy Galactic Starfighter tip is play with the sound on. I normally don't play the game with the sound on because I'm usually watching TV at the same time or something. But like when I'm doing operations, flashpoints, GSF, I always make sure I put my headphones on. Yeah, it's so important in Galactic Starfighter. If you can't hear that missile lock on you or when you're trying to lock onto somebody else, you miss out on so much from the game and you'll just die repeatedly. It's horrible. I did it once and it's never again. And then the second tip I had is some of the companion abilities really bug me when they chirp their voices in, or that general when he announces the Starfighter match. So I just go into the preferences and turn the voice volume down to 0 for when I'm doing Starfighter, and then I turn it back up once I'm done if I'm going back into stories and leveling characters, that kind of thing.
You don't like hearing "This is how Jedi fly" over and over every time you hit barrel roll? I love
That
it.
one, or Treek's little chirping and whatnot.
Dude, M14X, I never want to stop listening to anything he has
Oh,
to
if I
say.
could use him for all my ships, I would totally do it.
Oh, it'd be beautiful.
Alright, any final words, gentlemen?
Yeah, don't be afraid to play the ship that you like. I know on the forums people crucify you for playing a type of ship or say, oh, this ship is bad and this ship is good and that and blah, 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 blah. The bottom line is play the game, try out everything. Even stock components still work really well, and find what you like, because that's the bottom line. Like, if you can find something that it might be weird and other people will be like, oh, it's not the most effective build or whatever the hell, it's still, as long as you can make it work, that's all that matters, because I think everything is so close together that you could probably make almost everything work in one form or another, even something like rapid fire lasers, which I think is universally hated.
And proton torpedoes.
Yeah.
I just want to say again, don't quit a losing or hard match. Use it as an opportunity to learn and educate yourself, and try and get in there. Maybe get a couple of hard kills. You'll feel better. You go in there and take somebody out that's been killed you 50 times.
Yeah.
And then just to follow on from that as well is if you are in a losing match, normally I'm trying to level one of my other ships. If it looks like we're losing badly, I normally jump onto my gunship just because it can do that much more damage. Just sit back and snipe at people when they get too close, and it's not going to change the outcome of the match, but you'll get bigger numbers. You'll get close to the top of the board and team player. Good stuff.
Yeah, don't quit. You're not going to get experience. You're not going to get credits. You're not going to get requisition. You're not going to get anything out of it if you quit, and you're not going to get credit for dailies or weeklies or anything. On top of that, if you're having a really difficult game and your team is losing, that's your best opportunity to actually get some of the harder achievements, like the highest damage dealer, the best accuracy. Like play a ship that's got a missile lock and never fire your blaster. And you can get missile locks off, and you're going to get 100% accuracy. And there's some really difficult achievements along that. Like focus on the achievements or the requisition or whatever. Like even if you're a losing match on Dominion, hold 1 and node protect. You're going to get your maximum requisition returns just from sitting on the node and playing defense the whole time, even though you know you're going to lose. And that's going to help you build your ship better, help you perform better, and let you get into the next game and win the next time. Just don't quit. It's not worth it. It hurts you more than it helps you.
And also earns your reputation as a team player as well.
At the end of the day, GSF is a PvP game. You try, and even when you're losing, that's a great opportunity to learn. There are tons of people out there that are willing to help you, like I've already mentioned, and I think we've already heard across this podcast at least 3 different people. They're willing to come to your server, answer your questions, post on the forums, post in their guides, post anywhere you can think of, email them. I left my email with TO. There are so many people out there willing to help you, and yes, it takes time, but it is really fun.
All right, and that's a show. If you'd like to play with us in the Utini Knights Guild on the Republic side of the Harbinger server, or in our
Utini Rage.
Guild on the Empire side, do a /cjoin Utini to join the Utini channel, then ask for the quiz that lets us know you're a fan of the show. You can email questions and comments about the show to OotiniCast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter. We are on @OotiniCast. I Twitter under my own name, @Jason Etheridge, and our regular co-host, Chill, uses @Brandon L. Star. You can find Red at R3DN4. You can watch him on twitch.tv/R3DN4. Anastasia, you can find him on the Bastion. He plays as Anastasia or Pythia, Pythia, and Dementia on the Ebon Hawk. Dunedai is @Dunedai Forel, DUNEDAIFOREL. And Dan is @Megadan66. Check out our website, OotiniCast.com, which is links to our presence on Google Plus and Facebook. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, and we're also on Stitcher and Spreaker. We record the show live every Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Go to OotiniCom.live, OotiniCast.com/live to find out how to join in. Our theme song is from Mevio's Music Alley. Check it out at music.mevio.com. That's MEVIO. Thank you to the chat room. Thank you, Red, Stasi, Dan, and Junidai.
Thanks, had fun.
And we'll see you next week. All right. Gentlemen, please stop your recording now. Hit that stop button. Chat room, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for coming. I'll have to go back and see what you all said later. It's a bit hard to keep track.
And thank you, Billiam. Achievements matter.
Yeah, I guess. All right,
thing
and
is,
I'll stop.
it's the incentive. It's how you play the game. Everybody needs to be reminded about all the details of it.
True enough. All right, we'll be back next week with Chill. Have a good week.
Good night.